Hey, fourth graders, it's time for math. We are finishing up topic 12. Isn't it exciting? So today we're going to be talking about looking for structure and how we can take what we know about benchmark decimals to help us find our answers in our math lesson today. So 12-6 is what we're going to be working on. Let's go. All right, so the decimals that we're going to be focused on today are considered benchmark decimals. They are very commonly used decimals, and we have also learned them in our fractions too, as 1/4, half, 3/4, and a whole. In the decimal side, I want you guys to think about them as money. You've seen these decimals before, and you know them when you think of money. 25 hundredths is the same as 1/4. 25 hundredths is the same as 1/4. We have 1 out of the 4 quarters we would need to make a whole. 5/10 or 50 hundredths is the same as 2 quarters. 75 hundredths is the same as 3 quarters. We have 3 out of the 4 quarters we need to make $1. 1 whole dollar is all 4 of our quarters, 4 out of 4 quarters. So today we're going to keep that in mind as we are talking about creating a picture to solve our word problems on a number line using our decimals. So 0.5, 5/10, or 50 hundredths, we're halfway to 1 whole dollar, 1 whole mile, 1 whole pizza. We know that 0.5 is halfway there. 0.25, 25 hundredths, is a quarter, 1/4 of the way there. 75 hundredths is 3/4 of the way to getting to our whole. When you're going to place your benchmark decimals on a number line, you want to start with the halfway, the 5/10. That's halfway to the dollar. It's really easy to identify where halfway is from the start to the end on our number line. It doesn't matter how long the number line is. They're both representing a mile here. I just have to make sure that I put my 5/10 in the middle of this number line and 5/10 in the middle of this number line. After you've identified your halfway point, your 5/10, then you can go ahead and fill in the 25 hundredths and the 75 hundredths, or the 1/4, 2 quarters, 3 quarters of your whole mile. So the 25 hundredths is going to be in the middle of this, from the start to the halfway mark. The 75 hundredths is going to be right in the middle of the halfway mark to the end. Doesn't matter how long your number line is, 5/10 will always be right in the middle. 25 hundredths will be between start and halfway. 75 hundredths will be right in the middle of halfway and the end. So let's look at this number line for a moment. I can tell that this 5/10 is not in the middle from the start all the way to the end of this line. So this line is showing me greater than 1. So I have to figure out, where would the 1 mile marker go? If this is 5/10 or halfway to 1 mile, I'm just going to kind of guesstimate from here to here. So from here to here, about that spot right there would be my 1 mile marker, 1.0. I just keep measuring that distance again and again. So I'm assuming that right here would be about 1.5 miles. So it doesn't tell us exactly how far it is to the finish of this number line, but we can tell where they had the 0.5, the 5/10, that this wasn't going to be our 1 here, because we know that 5/10 is going to be our halfway mark to our next whole number. So today you're going to be working through page 659. So let's go ahead and start by talking about the guided practice problem. They're telling us 2 girls painted their banners blue. One girl painted her banner 4/10, and the other girl painted 5/10 of her banner. Now we have to remember that just because they have these number lines right next to each other doesn't mean that they're numbered the same exact way. So I can tell right away 5/10 is halfway to 1. So they want me to show what would her whole banner look like, 1 whole piece of her banner. Well, if this is half of her banner, would I put the 1 whole here? Or would I want to put it all the way at the end of this number line? Remember, 5/10 is halfway. To make it to my whole, I just need another piece this big. So that would be about to here. 1 hole. Margie painted 4/10 of her banner. Now, just because this looks bigger when you first compare these two, doesn't mean that the number lines are numbered exactly the same. You have to think about the values in their place values, the 4/10 or 5/10. So here I have to figure out where would her whole banner end up. Well, I know that 4 is less than 5, so this is less than halfway. So would her whole banner be here, or would her banner be closer to here? If you said here, you're correct. Now let's talk about our independent practice. It says Caitlin is making a map for a 1-mile scavenger hunt. She wants the stops to be at 5/10 of a mile, 3/10 of a mile, and 85/100 mile from the start. So we have to figure out where would those spots be on our number line. So the problem told us that this scavenger hunt is 1 mile long. So I know that my end is going to be 1 mile. Then it makes it really easy for me to fill in the very first mile marker she wants, which is 5/10. We learned that 5/10 is our halfway mark to 1. So if this is our 1 mile spot, we would go ahead and put our 5/10 about right there. The next thing that I recommend doing is looking at number 4. Filling in your other benchmark spaces, that's going to help you know where to put in these other 2 mile markers. So if 0.5 is right in the middle, we talked that 25/100 is between start and the middle, right in the middle of those. And we talked about 75/100 being in the middle of 5/10 and the end. So 75/100 would go about here. Then it's easy for me to think about, where would 3/10 go? Would it be closer to 25, 50, or 75? Where would 85/100 go? Would it be closer to 25/100, 5/10 or 50/100, or 75/100, or maybe it's closer to 1 whole? Remember, when you fill this in, if it helps you to place a 0 here, you can still see that this is 5/10 or 50/100. It's still our middle of the line from our 0 point to our next whole number. We're halfway to our next whole number when we're at 0.5 or 0.50. So same thing here, if it helps you to fill in that next place value, 30, where would 30 go on this number line? 85, where would 85 go on this number line? Down here, you put those points on there and explain your thinking. As always, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself, Miss Abisba, or Miss Fallon. We hope you're doing well.